Hello and welcome to India Business Hour. I'm Parikshit Luthra. Here are the headlines we are tracking this evening. Infosys beats Street in Q1. The company now expects FY25 revenue growth between 3 to 4% higher than their earlier guidance of 1 to 3%. Constant currency revenue growth comes ahead of estimates. Bulls maintain the momentum on Dalal Street. Nifty crosses 24,800, ending at a record high for the fourth straight session. Sensex surpasses 81,000 for the first time. The union budget is likely to be a continuation of the February vote on account. The government may opt for fiscal prudence along with welfare measures, expenditure, tax revenue, borrowings, interest payments and government capex. Targets unlikely to see big changes. Air India rolls out a voluntary retirement scheme for its non-flying permanent staff to reduce excess workforce as the Vistara integration begins. Around 600 permanent employees have been declared redundant in the fitment exercise. About 300 contractual employees to lose jobs as the airline is unlikely to renew their contracts. Union government's grievance redressal department gets 14 lakh complaints over welfare schemes and other issues in the first 6 months of this year. The Prime Minister Awas Yojana scheme to build rural housing tops the list with nearly 5 lakh complaints in 6 months. The Supreme Court hears petitions proposing and opposing a NEET retest, directs the National Testing Agency to publish centre-wise results by masking the identity of students by Saturday noon. US President Joe Biden cancels campaign events testing positive for COVID. Clamour within the Democratic Party for him to back down from the presidential race grows louder. At least 20 Democratic lawmakers have asked Biden to drop out. Donald Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, accepts his nomination for vice president at the Republican convention. Vance blasts Wall Street barons, saying they crashed the economy. Donald Trump is scheduled to speak later tonight, his first address since the assassination attempt. Israeli attacks kill over 80 people in Gaza in the last 24 hours. UN relief agency says at least 8 schools housing displaced people have been bombed in the last 24 hours. More than 38,000 Palestinians have been killed since the war began 9 months ago. China holds arms control talks with the United States in protest against Washington's decision to sell arms to Taiwan. Beijing says America must respect China's core interests. The United States accuses China of following Russia's lead by holding the negotiations hostage to other conflicts. BJP's Uttar Pradesh chief Bhupendra Chaudhary submits a 15-page report on the poor performance in the Lok Sabha elections, highlights overreach by bureaucracy, paper leaks and a tired cadre as the key reasons. Let's start with the market wrap. A late recovery helped the bulls maintain the momentum on Dalal Street. Sensex gained over 600 points to move comfortably above the 81,000 mark. Nifty crossed 24,800, ending at a record high for the fourth straight session. Mid-cap saw profit booking as they underperformed the blue chips. IT stocks were the stars in trade with the index gaining over 2%. And speaking of IT stocks, Infosys reported a stellar set of numbers in the first quarter. The company has also hiked its FY25 growth outlook to 3 to 4% from the earlier range of 1 to 3%. Reema Tendulkar is here with all the numbers.
Well, it's a blockbuster quarter from Infosys this time, and now Infy is the fourth IT company to report good set of numbers ahead of street expectation. For Infosys this time, there is a beat on revenue, there is a beat on margins. So the company's top line growth has come in at 3.6% in constant currency terms, ahead of street expectations of 2.5%. Also, revenue growth for Infosys has come in ahead of peers. And it was driven by a big jump in BFSI. So BFSI, which is the largest vertical for the company, has seen about a 7.5% increase in its revenue growth. Margins too have expanded by 100 basis points to 21.1%, ahead of street expectations. The deal wins for the company are strong at $4.1 billion. The company has gone ahead and raised its FY25 constant currency revenue forecast to 3 to 4%, given the Q1 beat. The earlier guidance was for 1 to 3%. Margin guidance guidance has been retained at 20 to 22%. The only fly in the ointment is the headcount for the company continues to moderate, and now it's fallen for the 6th consecutive quarter. This quarter, hiring for the company is down by 1,900 employees, while the attrition continues to remain stable, largely stable at 12.7%. The stock is down very well. In fact, even today the stock was up in the last 45 days, or from early June, the stock has rallied from levels of 1,400 now to 1,750. So the street was anticipating good numbers, and the company has delivered that.
The way we see what's going on in the market and our guidance, first, we had a strong performance in Q1 on volumes, as well as the point that we made on financial services in the US. Second, we had a very strong performance on large deals in Q1, which gives us more visibility into this financial year. And third, we completed the Intech acquisition, which also helps us in this guidance.
Last multiple quarters, we have moved to the agile hiring base. That basically means we hire freshers both from the campus, off the campus. This quarter, we had a 2,000 person net decline, which is lower than the previous quarters. Our utilization is already at 85%, so we have little headroom now left. So, as we start seeing growth, we will look at hiring. We are looking at hiring 15 to 20,000 freshers this year, depending on how we see the growth.
The July 23rd budget could be a continuation of the February 1st vote on account when it comes to the fiscal position. The government may opt for fiscal prudence along with welfare measures. Sapna Das joining us now. Sapna, you have analysed the key macro numbers. What can we expect coming Tuesday?
Indeed, this is a CNBC-TV18 analysis, and as far as the government's fiscal mass is concerned, the full budget is likely to be a continuation of the interim budget numbers. The key interim budget numbers, of course, cover GDP, expenditure, tax revenues, borrowings, interest payments and government capex. Well, government has already budgeted nominal GDP to expand by 10.5% over FY24, and this is not likely to change significantly in the full budget. The government has also budgeted a 6% growth in its expenditure, while it expects net taxes to grow by 12%. Now we know that tax buoyancy has been decent so far, and actual expenditure has been somewhat lower, maybe due to the lagged impact of elections. Hence, expenditure and revenues may trend slightly higher in the full budget on 23rd July. In terms of total borrowings, the deficit could also trend lower. Already is showing a declining trend, and this pace may accelerate with government retiring debt at a fast clip. That's the reason why interest payments have been pegged higher, and this trend will remain. Government capex is already up by around 16% budget on budget, which is sufficient for now, particularly given the fact that the government had slipped on capex targets in FY24 by almost around rupees 1 lakh crore. To sum up, big changes are unlikely in the key targets set out in the interim budget on July 23rd. The full budget is also likely to offer fiscal prudence with welfare measures, and the government may have an approximate up to rupees 1 lakh crore fiscal cushion just ahead of the budget announcements.
Industry body FICCI expects India's GDP to grow by 7% in FY25 despite global challenges. The FICCI survey, based on responses from top economists representing industry and representatives of banking and financial services, projects retail inflation to remain stable at 4.5%. The agricultural sector is likely to grow by 3.7% on the back of favourable monsoon expectations. Economists have emphasised on the need for taxation reform and measures to boost employment and sustain economic momentum. Shifting focus now to the aviation industry. Air India has rolled out a voluntary retirement scheme for its non-flying permanent staff to reduce excess workforce as the Vistara integration begins. Madhiya Mujawar is here with more. Madhiya, how many employees will be opting for this scheme and how many job losses are we really looking at?
Well, this is clearly an attempt to reduce the excess workforce, which is a result of Vistara's merger with Air India. Air India has 18,000 employees and Vistara has about 6,000 employees, together making it 24,000 employees. So when the two airlines merge, there will be duplication of roles where one position could have multiple managers. So sources at Air India say there are around 600 permanent non-flying employees who couldn't find any role to continue with the airline in the fitment exercise. Now, Air India conducted this exercise to evaluate the role and responsibilities of the staff of both airlines, which is Air India and Vistara. While the voluntary retirement scheme is for all non-flying employees having at least 5 years of service, it is mostly for those 600 staff that have been declared as redundant. Now, there is also a voluntary separation scheme for employees less than 5 years of service. The contractual staff is not that lucky though, and it is learned that the contracts of about 300 contractual employees are unlikely to be renewed in an effort to reduce the surplus workforce. Now, sources say that the Tata Group is trying to retain as much workforce as it can. It is trying to absorb the redundant staff at other Tata Group companies, but those not finding a role to continue will be left with no choice but to opt for the retirement scheme or the separation scheme.
All right, Madhya, very important story regarding Air India. Moving on, EdTech major Byju has challenged the NCLT's insolvency order in the National Company Law Appellate Tribunal. The EdTech has proposed to settle the dispute with BCCI for 158 crore rupees in one installment within a month. The case relates to Byju's failing to pay sponsorship dues for the Indian men's cricket team jersey. NCLAT is likely to hear the matter on the 22nd of July. And staying with legal news, the Supreme Court has deferred the hearing of pleas filed by gaming companies against GST notices to the 31st of July. As per a report by Money Control, 30 petitions have been filed by real money gaming companies against a demand of more than 1.5 lakh crore in retrospective taxation. Of this, 27 have been transferred to the Supreme Court from various high courts. The Supreme Court also heard petitions filed over the NEET controversy. The Apex Court directed the National Testing Agency to publish the marks while ensuring the identity of students is masked. Ashmit Kumar is here with more details. Ashmit, take us through the court action.
Well, it was a day-long hearing as far as the NEET issue is concerned. The Apex Court at the very outset pointed out that this is an urgent issue. This requires the attention of the Apex Court. The fate of 23 lakh candidates is in the hands of the Apex Court. And with that, the Apex Court began a day-long hearing whereby detailed inquiries were made with respect to the custody, the transport and the distribution of question papers. What is finally ended the hearing with, the Apex Court has directed the NTA to come out and to publish the results. That was a long-standing demand of various petitioners that they don't have clarity about the way forward given as the results themselves have not been published. So to that end, a deadline has been served of 12 noon Saturday, that's July 20th. That's when the Supreme Court wants NTA to publish all these results. The only caveat that the Apex Court has said is that the identity of the students needs to be masked. So that's one caveat that the NTA will have to bear in mind. As to the way forward, well, the Apex Court clearly concluded today that there are no two ways about it, and this is Supreme Court reiterating its earlier position. There are no two ways about it. There was indeed a leak as far as Hazaribagh and Patna are concerned. What the Supreme Court said it needs to ascertain is if similar trends of leaks are being seen in other centers, are being seen in other cities. That is something that the Apex Court is keen on determining. So as to when will the Apex Court answer that critical question of whether or not a cancellation is in order, well, that is something that the Apex Court has deferred the hearing to on July 22nd. That's Monday of next week. The Apex Court will take up this case once again. The CJI expressing hope that we will see the end of this matter before the Apex Court on Monday, when the Apex Court seeks more answers, more clarity from the NTA as well as the petitioners. Back to you.
In the last 10 years, the government has come up with a slew of welfare and social upliftment schemes targeting various weaker sections of society. But implementation of many of these schemes has not been very smooth. CNBC-TV18's Timsi Jaipuria, who caught up with V. Srinivas, Secretary to the Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievances, reports that the government's rural housing scheme and the scheme giving minimum income support to farmers have been seeing most of the complaints.
Whether it's the pro-farmer PM Kisan scheme or the PM Awas Yojana aimed at providing affordable housing or any of the other social welfare schemes announced by the government in the last 10 years, implementation has been a big challenge. And this is evident in the number of complaints and grievances recorded by the Department of Administrative Reforms and Public Grievance. The worst pain points for the government, going by the number of grievances recorded on the Centralized Public Grievance Redress and Monitoring System or CP-GRAMS in just the first 6 months of this year, are the PM Awas Yojana, especially the scheme dealing with the rural housing. Over 4.79 lakh complaints have been registered against it. The PM Kisan, which promises minimum income support of 6,000 rupees per year to farmers, is a distant second, with a little under 52,000 grievances. The other top spots go to complaints related to Employee Provident Fund Organization or EPFO, which are mainly to do with problems pertaining to withdrawals and timely payments, banking-related complaints, and reports of banking and credit card frauds.
In the priority sector programs, Jal Jeevan Mission and PM Kisan, these are two programs where citizens are approaching government to consider their claims. The grievances largely pertain to priority sector programs, wherein which citizens are seeking enhanced delivery of services. There are also grievances that pertain to employee-related grievances like EPFO.
The government has recorded a spike in grievances in the run-up to the elections.
This year, in the past 6 months, we have received around 14 lakh grievances have been received on the portal. In terms of central sector, central ministries and grievances, we have hit largely a plateau in terms of about 20 lakh grievances per annum, and roughly 1.8 to 2 lakh grievances per month is what we have been receiving. The highest we have received was 1.94 lakh grievances in the month of March 2024.
The highest complaints relate to the PM Awas Yojana and range from name not included to survey not being conducted to delay in payment of installments for each level of construction. For the PM Kisan scheme, the most common complaints have been that beneficiaries have suddenly stopped receiving installments, that bank details not getting uploaded and saved, and that the state government has not approved beneficiary details beyond the initial few stages. The Secretary says the DFS and RBI are working to reduce, address and help citizens and are actively pushing to spread awareness and crack down on such cases of fraud. But this does not mean the other grievances are being ignored. The government is getting ready to enhance the scope of many of these welfare schemes, and this means it will have to not only clear the backlog of grievances but also push for smoother implementation at the ground level. Because unless the wrinkles are ironed out on priority, the expanded schemes will run into a lot more problems, leaving more dissatisfied, disgruntled and angry citizens in their wakes. In New Delhi, Timsi Jaipuria.
And coming up on India Business Hour, what do small businesses want from the union budget? Special report in just a bit. You're watching India Business Hour. At least 4 people were killed and several injured after several bogies of a Dibrugarh-bound express train derailed near Gonda in Uttar Pradesh. The cause of the accident is yet to be ascertained. The big political story now. BJP's Uttar Pradesh chief Bhupendra Chaudhary has submitted a 15-page report on the poor performance in the Lok Sabha election. Sources say the report highlights overreach by bureaucracy, paper leaks and a tired cadre as the key reasons. Aman Sharma, who accessed that report, is now joining us live. Aman, take us through the report and what we can expect next.
There are a lot of rumblings inside the Uttar Pradesh unit of the BJP post the Lok Sabha results, where we saw the BJP's tally dropping from 62 seats in 2019 to only 33 seats this time. And this massive loss in the number of seats in UP has now led to a full manthan inside the party on what really went wrong. Over a month has passed since the election results came in, and we now see the Deputy Chief Minister, Mr. Keshav Prasad Maurya of the BJP in UP, landing in Delhi, meeting senior leaders, telling them what has gone wrong. The UP BJP Chief, Bhupendra Chaudhary, has also met Mr. JP Nadda, the BJP President, as well as the Prime Minister, to hand over a 15-page detailed report going into the reasons on why the BJP fared so poorly in UP, and the talk of a tiff between the UP Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath and the Deputy Chief Minister Keshav Prasad Maurya have also surfaced, and both the sides are trading charges inside quarters and also publicly at the recent BJP State National Executive meeting in Lucknow, where Mr. Keshav Prasad Maurya said that no government can be bigger than the organization is supreme, while Yogi Adityanath pointed at overconfidence. This is leading to talk now in Uttar Pradesh that is all well between the Chief Minister and the Deputy Chief Minister. Well, sources in the BJP tell us that of course things have taken a downslide here, but corrective measures will be taken. There could be changes both at the organizational level as well as the cabinet level. The cabinet reshuffle is imminent in UP, and faces from the backward community could find place there. Similarly, there could be organizational changes in UP BJP as well. Going ahead, the top priority of the BJP is the 10 upcoming bypolls in UP, and the BJP would like to win a maximum of those bypolls to change this narrative that the BJP is on the back foot in the key state of Uttar Pradesh.
The big global story: US President Joe Biden has tested positive for COVID-19, forcing him to cancel his presidential campaign event. The White House has said he has mild symptoms and will carry out his duties under isolation in Delaware. This comes at a time when Biden has been under immense pressure from within the Democratic Party to withdraw his nomination from the race. His poor performance in the debate, where he was pitted against Donald Trump, stoked fear about his health. It also raised concerns about whether or not he is fit enough to lead the Democrats into the elections. At least 20 Democrat members of the US Congress have asked Biden to drop out. Former US President Donald Trump will formally accept his nomination as the Republican presidential candidate in his first address since the assassination attempt. Trump's running mate J.D. Vance has already accepted his nomination for vice president at the Republican convention. Speaking at the convention, Vance accused Wall Street barons of crashing the U.S. economy with 2008 housing crisis and said that Trump administration will commit to the workforce, to the working class, unlike Joe Biden's presidency.
Wall Street barons crashed the economy and American builders went out of business. As tradesmen scrambled for jobs, houses stopped being built. The lack of good jobs, of course, led to stagnant wages. And then the Democrats flooded this country with millions of illegal aliens. So citizens had to compete with people who shouldn't even be here for precious housing. Joe Biden's inflation crisis, my friends, is really an affordability crisis.
On to global headlines now. Israeli attacks kill over 80 people in Gaza in the last 24 hours. UN relief agency says at least 8 schools housing displaced people have been bombed in the last 24 hours. More than 38,000 Palestinians have been killed since the war began 9 months ago. A big win for the LGBTQ community in South Korea. The country's Supreme Court has upheld a High Court's ruling that a same-sex partner is eligible for spousal benefits from state health insurance. The court said that denying the couple benefits constituted discrimination based on sexual orientation. Activists said that the ruling is a stepping stone for progress towards marriage equality. Better access to credit and ease of doing business. That's what MSMEs want from the upcoming union budget. CNBC-TV18's Shilpa Ranipeta reports that the MSMEs in Maharashtra also want the government to ensure better implementation of schemes announced during the budget.
India currently has 6.33 crore MSMEs, which together employ over 20 crore people. But the sector continues to face a multitude of problems and hurdles, from a lack of credit access to an unfavorable business environment to high costs. These enterprises are now looking to the Modi 3.0 government's first budget to offer a solution to some of these problems. Their top requests: continue the rule mandating payment within 45 days from a date a product or service is delivered, and expanding the NPA classification period from 90 days to 180 days.
See, I am pursuing this NPA 90 days to 180 days to be changed a definition for last 2 years. I had a meeting with the 2 RBI deputy governors where we have also discussed this point that 90 days is very less period for any company to become NPA. They should not change the definition of 45 days payment to be receivable from the corporates and PSB or any PSU. This is a strict, we have recommended to the minister that should not change at all. Because of that, so many SMEs are dying. They are not getting their trade receivable.
Access to credit is a hurdle MSMEs have been grappling with for years. The government has announced a few relief measures like the credit guarantee scheme. But MSMEs say the compliance burden and actually getting the funds under these schemes are problem areas.
Wherever the MSME approaches banks and they don't get any loans without collaterals. Okay. So the collaterals plays a very important role, whereas the MSME doesn't have that flexibility to bring in a collateral and take the loan facilities. So it really doesn't work that way.
We have recommended that the MSME sector should be given an sort of an priority sector. The banks should give them at a lesser interest, and by which the manufacturing can be encouraged. Correct. Government intent is there, but the banks are not really in the ground level. It is not happening.
Data from the government shows that 11.65 lakh guarantees worth over 1 lakh crore rupees were approved in FY23 under the credit guarantee scheme, and under the Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana, which offers collateral-free loans of up to 10 lakh rupees, total disbursals stood at 5.2 lakh crore rupees as of FY24.
While access to credit and capital is critical for MSMEs, many of them say that support in terms of technology, capability building and upskilling is equally critical for them to grow from micro to small to medium to eventually large enterprises.
For this, they hope the budget will allocate funds towards upskilling and reskilling enterprises.
Besides having technical understanding of the business, entrepreneurs and their organizations needs to understand management science also along with it. Management science plays a vital role in the growth or transformation of any organization.
Infrastructure is another area in which the sector hopes the government will help.
Providing reduced electricity for the MSME exporters, because many areas are landlocked countries and they don't have any port facilities. So we have requested to provide dry port facilities. We have requested to increase the basic custom duty of the value-added products, because what is happening is presently the FTAs are not having that reciprocity. So if you are importing these low-end substandard products, the domestic industry is going to be affected.
MSMEs account for over 45% of the country's exports, and so the hope is the government will come up with more measures or enhance existing ones to boost exports.
Budget may see the announcement of the setting up of a global trade body. This, experts say, is good news for the industry, as it not only gives smaller enterprises exposure to international markets, but will also help boost exports and reduce India's rising trade deficit. In Mumbai, Shilpa Ranipeta.
All right. Thank you very much, Shilpa, for that report. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Business Hour. Thank you for watching. News continues right here on CNBC-TV18.